She is having a baby. Elizabeth. She's too old to be having a baby, but she is. God is involved in this story. Earlier in the story, a messenger, an angel, had made her a promise that she'd have a baby, despite being way past the age of childbearing, and that would bring great joy. And here, at this point, the promise has come true. Not just about the baby, but also about the joy. And obviously she's joyful, but that joy is not just for her, it overflows to her neighbours and to her family. She can't keep it to herself. This is part of an ancient story. It's a Jewish story. So, according to tradition, in a Jewish story, a baby boy undergoes at 8 days old a slightly painful ceremony called circumcision. Their God gave them this way of being and included this ritual that physically set them apart. But it wasn't just a physical sign, it was a reminder actually of a promise, a covenant that their God had made with them. He'd made them as a people and he'd given them a task to do, and he'd given them a way of living and some signs that reminded them of his promises. We're in the ancient Near East for this story, so over 2,000 years ago. And it's collected for us in a book called Luke, which is in this collection of books that we call the Bible. It's a story that started with two babies. And these babies have names. And traditionally, in Jewish writing, names mean something, but also names are traditional. You're typically named after one of your ancestors. Sometimes your dad, although obviously that can be confusing. My dad was a Robert. His dad was also a Robert. And until one of them worked out that he could be called Bob, things got pretty confusing. Most often, it was maybe your dad's name or your grandfather's name or even further back. But here, despite the fact the neighbours have decided something already, that the name will be Zechariah, something else happens. They know, they think, the neighbours, the friends, the family, that this is how things go. The baby's going to be called Zechariah, but this is not that kind of a story. Instead, Elizabeth unexpectedly says this baby will be called John, a name that means God is gracious. The friends are not convinced. They think she must be mistaken, so they turn to the father, to Zechariah. Well, there's a problem. Zechariah can't speak. Why is that? Well, that's because when the angel told him about his son, he doubted or half doubted, and he asked some questions and he asked for a sign, and the angel said, right, okay, you can have a sign, you won't be able to speak until this happens. So they wave and they communicate to him and they ask him to sort Elizabeth out, to sort things out according to tradition. He asks them for a tablet. Maybe a familiar sound or a familiar plea to those parents or carers who've been struggling with kids and entertaining them through lockdown. But it wasn't that kind of a tablet. It's a writing tablet. And he scratches out the name indeed will be John. Turns out this isn't a story that goes along the lines of how things were expected to be. And so Zechariah's silence is broken. Again, exactly as the angel promised. And everyone's astonished. And Zechariah, he overflows. In your translation, it might say that he spoke, but it's obvious from the way this text flows and originally in the original language that it's a song to break a long silence, a song that he can't, like Elizabeth, keep to himself. If I'm one of Luke's first listeners in the first century, part of a new Jesus movement, living it out in the face of the Roman Empire, then the story that is a story about a life and a death and a resurrection of a man called Jesus of Nazareth is something I'm struggling to deal with. A story about a people who have promises made to them, and they know that their God is a God who rescues people from slavery and who gives them a job, and in there are reminders of that God's promises, like the painful circumcision part. And as they're hearing a story about a man who's been silent for 9 months, they can't help but remember the silence they live with. For 400 years, It feels like their prophets, their artists have fallen silent, that God has stopped speaking to them. And they are half trusting, half doubting, looking for small signs that their God might put things back together. He might give them an empire again. He might put a new king on the throne that's like their great king David. But meanwhile, silence. I wonder if any of us can identify with that feeling. But Luke says that silence is broken, and he doesn't just mean Zechariah's. And it's not happening in a way anyone expected or according to the old traditions. It's not going as people think it should be. No, it's different. Zechariah then sings, and his song, given to us by Luke, is inspired. In fact, Luke tells us it's prophecy. It's God speaking. There's nothing subtle about Luke's story. This isn't just a unique birth and a unique way of naming. There's more going on. This is God at work. This is God speaking. This is the silence being broken. And God has always been doing this, and he has always been undermining and exploding people's expectations. He is a God who comes, like I quoted in here, to visit his people. He made them to be with him after all. And he's a God who rescues, who saves, who redeems. That means to rescue, to save at a cost. But their hopes were limited. They just wanted freedom from Rome, freedom from empire, freedom from slavery and corruption, freedom from their enemies in front of them right now. They had such clear ideas about how that might happen. They didn't want anything unprecedented to happen. But this song goes a bit further. It's made up of all their old quotes and songs and prophecies, but it's about so much more. Not just about a king, not just about a David or an Abraham, but instead it talks about forgiveness of sins. And sin is a word these stories use for the addiction humans have to mucking things up, to the tendency that humans have to fall short of what they are made for who they are made to be. And Luke's story is a story about the life and the death and the resurrection of a man who somehow is this God with us, this God in person, this God come to visit and redeem, just as he promised. Maybe in an unexpected way. This story is much bigger, about getting rid of sin and death and anything that gets in the way of God's creation project and in the way of his blessing for not just the Jewish people but all peoples. And that's one of the reasons that Zechariah's song is so full of his ancient Jewish story. Luke is letting me know that this is not a new story. This is an old story, an old set of promises, a God who keeps his promises, but not necessarily in the way I might expect. Zechariah responds to overflow, to burst into song as God breaks this silence, as God keeps this promise in an unexpected way. Elizabeth responds with joy. Joy that overflows. Joy that she can't keep to herself. Goes out to her family, her street, her neighbours. And this story spread. The story spread to the neighbours, to the community, to the whole area. Gossip powered that. Gossip started and gossip spread because this story was never meant for any one person. Never meant for any one group of people and never meant to happen in one fixed way. This is a story about overflowing. This is a story about something that demands a response. This is a story, a song for those, it says, in darkness and the shadow of death. Maybe we could all do with a bit more of this kind of good gossip. Let's get people talking. Let's get people wondering. Let's not just do what is expected. let's not keep it to ourselves.